Hello, I'm Amitha Balachandra. This is a 6:30 p.m. show, which I will be doing every single day. So basically, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pick up one topic. We have one expert to basically give you information about everything that's going on about that one topic and help you understand things a little better. So I will be doing this every single day at 6:30. So the point of this discussion is to make things interactive with you guys. So make sure that you ask your questions in the chat window that is open. Ask your questions using the super chat feature, because then I'll know that you've asked that question and I'll take it up during the course of the conversation here. So today we have a very interesting topic that we've lined up for you, and that's something that will affect all of us. From the 1st of October, the government is preparing for Unlock 5. Now, there is speculation that among other economic activities, cinema halls will also be opened up. Now, the fifth stage of lockdown will start from the 1st of October. So it's going to be interesting to see what the center decides. And as far as Unlock 4 was concerned, we saw metro open up, and from the 21st of September we saw the center giving permission to open air theaters, for instance, despite a lot of conversation, a lot of representation from multiplex owners saying that cinema halls should be open on an urgent basis. Now, we'll come to what association members are saying, but let's for a moment take a look at COVID-19 numbers in India. Now, India has more than 6.07 million cases, and it's the second worst affected in the world, also inching very closer to the US, which is at 7.1 million cases, and that should worry us a little bit. The health minister, as of today, has said that we're nowhere close to herd immunity, and that we must not become complacent. The reason I'm bringing this up is because we have to ask a couple of questions as far as Unlock 5 is concerned. Looking at Unlock 5, there's been a very interesting development from West Bengal. Now, West Bengal Chief Minister has tweeted that cinemas will open in West Bengal starting the 1st of October, of course, keeping all social distancing norms in place, with ensuring that not more than 50 people will come in. So this is a tweet that the chief minister had put out, saying that this is subject to precautionary protocol. Now, this is what we aim to find out. While COVID-19 cases are increasing, of course, we are moving towards Unlock 5. A couple of things that we're going to ask to cinema owners: whether cinema owners think that this is a good move, that they have to open it up across the country and not just in West Bengal, what kind of losses they've actually faced over the last 6 months, because cinemas have been shut since March. Are they prepared if the center were to announce this across the country? Because there is speculation, nothing has come out from the center per se officially. And with 6.7 million cases, can we afford this at the moment? Also, tell us how you are feeling, whether you would want to go and watch, at a movie theater. Are you missing that entire experience? Do mention in the chat window. We'll take up those questions as well. For this conversation, I have somebody really interesting. We have Sharad Doshi, who is the Vice President of Cinema Owners and Exhibitors Association of India and the partner of Central Plaza Theatre in Bombay. Join us. He will be giving us the single theatre, single screen theatres perspective. I don't have somebody from multiplexes, but of course, we're going to look at their tweets and also bring up their concerns. But Mr. Doshi, thank you so much for joining us, first of all. I think you're muted. I'm going to let you unmute. In the meantime, I'll also ask you my first question. If you can tell us, how has the lockdown impacted not just single screen theater owners, but also multiplexes? If you can give us a perspective of the industry per se, the last 6 months that the theaters have been shut, what has been the kind of losses you're looking at?
Well, we have certain costs which are fixed, immaterial of whether the cinema is operating or not. For example, property taxes that we pay, or the minimum load of electricity bills that we have to carry, whether we consume electricity or not. Staff salaries at times, you have to bear. Certain janitorial contractual services, if you have a binding contract, you have to pay. Insurance costs continue no matter what, whether there is a cinema operating or not. So such costs have been really hurting us during the time of COVID closure. Even before COVID, single screens were not really doing well. And COVID was just a final nail in the coffin for most of the single screens. I have a feeling that even if perhaps government allows single screens to open in a near future, it might be extremely difficult for them to manage financially as to how to remain open.
So, if you can give us some perspective about how things were for single screens before COVID, because you mentioned that things weren't looking well before COVID as well.
I believe before the COVID situation was just normal. Most of the films were screened at multiplexes as well as single screens, except in a very few cases where the films were very niche films which required only limited exposure, limited number of seats exposure, or limited screens exposure. Most of the films, single screens did not have a problem getting the software at their cinema. So we were in a happy situation as far as the supply of the films was concerned. However, uh, last 5 to 7 years, the trend has been to shift the production quality more to cater to the audience of multiplexes rather than single screens. Tanaji was a big breather for single screens all over the country. It raked in huge money, huge collections. Every exhibitor was happy, and they screened the film for 7 to 8 weeks, in most of the screens, which was a very rare thing in recent times to have happened. Yeah, I think before COVID we were doing okay, not really very rosy, but we were not really doing that bad either. But with this overheads coming in after COVID and no revenue stream at all.
But what's really going on, Mr. Doshi, within the industry? Have there been representations to the government? Because we see that there's been a lot of pressure as far as multiplex owners are concerned, at least, to reopen theaters. They're saying that in the last 6 months, the losses have been staggering almost to 9,000 crore rupees.
There have been several representations by various sectors from the industry, including FICCI as well as Merchant Chamber and multiplex associations from all over the country. We had gone to meet Mr. Javadekar and requesting him an uprising of the situation. And we also understand that in the COVID pandemic, the way it is just expanding, the government also needs to be careful about how they really open up the economy. I mean, I'm surprised when West Bengal CM announced that they are operating the cinemas from 1st of October. But if you read the caveat for less than 50 people, you have a concert with less than 50 people being conducted in any part of the world. Or how would you have any other activity apart from a cinema theater in an auditorium which would have less than 50 people? It's just not economically viable.
So what is the suggestion you're making? You're saying that cinemas should be opened as soon as possible?
Absolutely. No question about that. It's the audience which has to start disciplining themselves, maintain the social distancing, making sure that they wear the masks, and making sure that they protect themselves from the exposure to COVID. We have to get used to COVID now. It's going to be part of the rest of our life.
There's an interesting question coming in from somebody who's not given us the name. Anonymous is written in saying, if even universities themselves aren't open, why should cinemas be open? Explain to us how important the next couple of months are going to be.
Are you talking from the audience point of view or from the
cinema owner's point of view?
Okay. We all understand that the audience is not going to flock into the theaters overnight. But at the same time, if you look at on every weekend, on Saturdays, on Sundays, especially in a city like Bombay, which I can speak about, you will see all youngsters out on the street having some food, even from a takeaway place, just standing out there and enjoying the food. I mean, people have that social get-together kind of a passion to meet somebody, at least once a week. You take that away from them. Going to the screen today and seeing a film is not just watching a film, it's also a social get-together, basically. So, the time will prove whether people really come to the cinemas or not, or they're happy with the OTT. I mean, when you want to get away from your wife, I mean, my wife is just listening to me, but if I have to just get out with my friends, what do I really do?
So you're saying the experience is not going to be taken away. That's something that people will still look forward to, but it will happen gradually. Someone has written in, Ronak Thakur has written in, cinema should be open, need to see Tenet. I'm also really looking forward to that film. So you're saying that that experience will come in with time.
Absolutely.
And if you can also help us understand Multiplex Owners Association, for instance, we'll try and put up that tweet, has been campaigning this for the last couple of months. They've been saying hashtag unlock cinemas save jobs. So there are a number of people perhaps who haven't gotten paid. Many people were laid off as well. So that will suffer if this is prolonged.
I can't speak particularly for any particular cinema chain of multiplexes in the country.
Okay.
But I believe substantial amount of work at multiplexes are done on a contract basis. And I'm sure all those contractors were without a job while the cinemas were closed. Some of them are permanent employees. Top management is, of course, always a permanent employee. They've had their wage cuts. They've had their salary cuts. For last 3 months at least has been, in my opinion, not less than 50% salary cut. So, it's been a tough time for families to survive, without a job, without a steady flow of income coming in, with all those EMIs, coming up. It's very difficult.
And what are the things that will change once cinemas open? Tanvi D has a very good question. This is going to be my follow-up question as well. She says, cinema halls is like my second home. Will this opening up affect ticket prices? Is there an SOP in terms of sanitation figured out?
I don't think it's going to affect the ticket pricing, in my opinion, because it will be purely a matter of demand and supply. Sanitization, yes, it's going to be very, very critical. I'll give a parallel example of airlines having opened up. They all prescribe row number 1 and 2 to please deplane, and rest of the passengers please remain in your seat. If you've taken up any flight recently, you will observe that moment the host announces that we are ready to depart or we are almost arriving, the guy from the last row will get up first. Now that is a discipline that we don't have. That audience will have to have that discipline, how to distance themselves correctly. And apart from sanitization, carry the masks, make sure that they don't contaminate and they don't get contaminated themselves.
But the entire onus cannot be on the audience itself, right? So what are the measures taken by cinema owners right now? Is there an SOP that the center has come up with?
I don't think we have heard anything from the center yet, because their standard operating procedures, we have not seen a specimen of that yet. Just like the basic precaution that airline is taking of checking your temperature, making sure that you have a shield or a mask, is going to be a minimum must. Regular sanitization of the seats after every show. Maybe they have to curtail their shows from 5 or 6 shows to maybe 2 shows or 3 shows a day to start with. Distancing again, leaving certain seats empty after every family or every booking. That is bound to come. I mean, it's going to be a part of routine now.
And we also want to put up that tweet that Amitha Balachandra had put out a couple of days ago. She says that they will have to open up cinema halls because things have to come back to normal, and a minimum of 50 people will be allowed. Social distancing, physical distancing, all of these things will be kept in mind. What is the reaction of the industry at this point? Because it all depends on the center as well, right? What's going to happen in the next couple of days? If the center decides to not do this, perhaps that's not going to go down in West Bengal as well.
That's right. Unless the center agrees to let cinemas open, I don't think any state government has any powers to ask their local theaters to open. Number one. Number two, when the cinemas open, it has to open pan-India, because all the producers will be releasing the pictures all over the world simultaneously. It's not that the film is produced only for Calcutta or Bengal territory. If it's a Bengali film, it's a different story. But if you are looking at a typical Hindi or an English film, it has to open pan India. So even Mamta Banerjee opening the cinemas in Bengal, cinemas will have more software to play.
And I want to know from viewers who are watching right now, what are the concerns? Please ask your questions in the chat window. It's open. I'll take up those questions as well. But do you believe that different states must have different strategies? Because there are a couple of states which are doing really badly right now. Maharashtra, for instance, Andhra Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka. They figure in the 7 worst hit states as far as COVID is concerned.
Naturally, I mean, more the problem, the bigger is the caution that is required based upon each city. Like, for example, Bombay and Pune has been doing terribly bad, in terms of number of cases expanding. So we have to take extra precautions. But that does not mean that the world is going to end here. I mean, we need to move ahead in life with whatever precautions we can physically take and practically take.
And do you have that? I mean, you've of course said that the center has not come up with any SOP, but within the association, have you come up with, plan for how you're going to go on? Are you ready at all? If the center suddenly decides to do this?
For single screen cinemas, it's reasonably easy to comply with whatever standard operating procedures will come, in my opinion. The reason being that on a national average, the single screens have not been doing more than 10 to 12% of their occupancy. So leaving the seats, even alternate rows not being issued, reducing, in any case, they were doing not more than 4 or 5 shows a day. So that's also not going to be an issue for them. I don't, single screens might be more able to comply with the strictest standard operating procedures, in my opinion, versus the multiplexes. Now, multiplexes have small screens, lesser number of seats, and within that, if they have to leave an alternate row or leave the seats blank or have only 30 or 35% occupancy, is going to be disastrous for them.
So you're saying that single screen perhaps will be far more prepared than multiplexes. Another question that I also want to pick up, Priyadarshini has said, should movie halls be given priority over schools, colleges, and universities? That's something that we're also seeing. Of course, there is a lot of apprehension among parents. We've seen in different states take different decisions as far as schools are concerned. For 9th and 12th, it is optional, plus they can come in only to clarify their doubts. But should movie halls be given priority over these?
Now, when you say priority, is government really giving away anything to the schools or cinema theaters? Not really. I mean, what do we mean by priority? It's a free world. People can operate wherever they want, however they want. Question is, are we prepared to follow the instructions of the government to have social distancing and cautions enough not to spread the pandemic? I don't think we can never be behind cinema screens. School is number one priority, but as you have seen, my grandkids are always, they are studying every day online. Now, every part of the world today, for example, even Harvard and MIT are having tuitions online. IIT Bombay is having tuitions online. So even schools, for that matter. So where is the issue of priorities being decided here?
Okay, before I let you go, if you can quickly tell us what are the concerns of the industry right now? A couple of things you said. You said that there is no SOP as yet. Single screens perhaps will be far more efficient in opening up than multiplexes, far more prepared, I beg your pardon. And you also said that it all depends on audiences, of course, that perhaps they will come in slowly. Maybe there will be apprehension initially. But what are the concerns right now for cinema owners?
I believe as a single screen cinema owner, my biggest concern would be my losses would be a lot higher for the first 2 or 3 months than what they have been in the past. And that's because all our overheads will have to be incurred, whether variable or fixed ones, with no guarantee that the audience will come into the theater. That's our biggest concern.
All right, Mr. Doshi, many thanks for joining us on this conversation. A couple of things that Mr. Doshi mentioned. He represents single screens, of course, but he said very crucial points. One is that cinema halls must be open, that life has to go on because COVID is here to stay. At least the health minister has also said that it will take some time for her herd immunity to come in, and India is nowhere near. Second, that single screens are already making losses. They were before COVID. And so it's very important for that to happen at least as soon as possible. And they're probably more, prepared to open up. And third, that they're waiting for the center to come up with a decision. Although the West Bengal government has said that they will be opening up from 1st of October, but it's going to be interesting to see what the center is going to say. There is speculation right now that cinema halls could be included, but we don't know yet because the standard operating procedure, which is SOP, has not yet been released. So we don't know what safety measures will be taken. On that note, this is the end of this conversation, but do come back at 8 o'clock. Take your break if you have to right now. But at 8 o'clock, there's a very interesting conversation coming up. Faye is going to be doing that conversation where she'll be discussing the CAG report on GST cess Act violation. Of course, the government has now refuted those allegations, but come back for that conversation at 8 p.m.